You what?
Good morning. How's it going, Nartis?
It's good in you, bud.
Good, man. Good. Coming to the end of a long and very productive, very positive year. Feeling like I need that holiday, but at the same time, very grateful for everything that all the hard work and all the progress that's happened. So,
Yeah, as long as
feeling
there was growth,
quite
right?
good about it.
So as long
Yeah,
as we're growing and moving forward, not just staying
absolutely.
stationary or static,
Absolutely.
being dynamic. It's ever changing, right? Like life, like everything
Yeah.
around us, like the seasons, like the waves of the ocean. Um, yeah, to it's sometimes comfortable to have things stay the same, but that's about it, right?
Yeah.
So, topic of discussion is unwanted emotions, or I thought, in other words, maybe calling it shadowy emotions. I'll tell
Yeah.
you why I call it from my side shadow emotions, but I'm sure you understand that. You already get it, but I'll also just note that here, so people that's listening to this can understand why we refer to it as that. And yeah, these are the emotions that at the end of the day, it's not only unwanted, but basically the best description of it is emotions that, this is my personal definition, I'd like to use yours as well, but emotions that manifests the things you do not want to manifest.
Okay. Okay.
Because how I look at it, you can tell me now if you also look at it this way or if it's different. That's why I like, we've got different, and we learn and grow from that as well. Like thoughts are the direction to where we want to go, and emotions are the creative source or the energy for those directions.
Yeah.
So, like in the book of Thomas, Jesus said that you need to make the two one. You need to make thought and emotion one. But also you can make them one. But if you link anger to productive thought, you manifest that in your current reality or in your future reality.
Yeah. So really, it's thoughts that manifest things we don't want. Perhaps, right? Because I'm thinking about what you're saying, emotions that manifest things you don't want. But could hatred not manifest something positive when in conjunction with a positive thing? Let me
You'll
give you
get
an
the
example.
emotion. Yeah. We can definitely debate this. This is going to be very interesting. Yes. Example.
So for example, like say the anger, the emotion of anger. Anger can be when associated with feelings of being disempowered, with mindsets of disempowerment. Anger tends to have very negative manifestations, right? We've often met people, you and I both, who are, let's say, in a bad place in life and angry because and in conjunction with a mindset that's very disempowered. And what happens is they just break everything around them and their lives just get worse, right? I'm sure you've met them, especially junkies like that a lot. Mindset of disempowerment, negative emotions, the combination's quite harmful. But what happens if your mindset is you are feeling anger, but mindset has changed, that same person, but the mindset changes to I am powerful enough to do something, and I'm angry that I have spent this much time sitting on my ass when I could have been growing and changing and moving forward, and that anger motivates me to get up, right? is that also going to result in a negative outcome, or is emotion the, as you say, energy that empowers thought, and the thought is what's directing that emotion in a good or bad place, and that there may in fact not be emotions that aren't worth having.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's my first thought.
good question. Yeah. So my personal opinion on this, this is from personal experience. In the past, when I especially worked with sigil specifically, I can refer back to that. So a sigil, if we look at the construction of a sigil, that is basically a thought or an idea that you have that you want to get manifested. Okay. People activate it with either sexual energy or with adrenaline, intense emotions, with pain. But what I've found is I've had a discussion with this with a very old friend of mine as well, because we were like just rolling sigils when we just realized. We were like, wow, just make a sigil for everything. And we had severe consequences for that. But what we realized is the emotion that the sigil was activated in was also the emotion that manifested with the manifestation. So if you want a white Ford Fiesta, we always use that exact example. So if you want a white Ford Fiesta, and you manifest it with an intense emotion, and at that time, with you being unaware, anger seeps in, and anger is the main emotion during that energetic channel. The moment you receive the white Ford Fiesta, you will not be joyful. That will come with with anger, or with the situation that'll cause anger. Let's use sadness, for example. If you activated it in a place where you were, your emotional resonance leaned mostly towards sadness. Okay. It might be that you get that manifestation, but someone dies at exactly that same time.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I'm saying the two needs to be of the one same kind. It needs to, if it is thoughts of, let's say, hell, you'll get that result at the end, because it's all about the end result. It's what you want at the end. Or if it's emotions of heaven, it'll be the results that you'll get at the end. If it was created in a joyful state, in a state of belief, in a state of faith, in a state of openness, you would get those exact results at that point. That's just my personal experience. I can just speak from my personal experience.
But I can't argue with that, because I see the same result with art, creative,
Yes.
like any domain of creation. Whatever emotion charges the work is the emotion that the work has later.
That's the resonance, yeah. And sigils is art, you know. A sigil is a form of art. So
yeah.
no.
But yeah, I've seen how the artistic expression becomes loaded, fueled with emotion that came with it, that came with its creation.
And that's the beauty of it, right?
I think that's,
you don't want to create art only from a joyful space. Because some of the most beautiful art pieces in the world were created in states of sadness or extreme anger or extreme pain. And that's what makes it so beautiful, because people can stand in front of those paintings or those art pieces and feel exactly the emotion and the thoughts that the artist had at that point, if they are tuned in enough. And some people can't like, say for instance, there was this specific artist, and he created it from a point of sadness, but the guy looking at it never had real intense sadness, but he knows art, and he can he's an empath, let's say that. Okay, so but he's never felt it on that level. It's an art in it for that guy to stand in front of this artist painting and to be able to feel a sadness that he's never felt in his life, and for him to actually emphasize or sympathize with this person at that moment, and for them to join as one, and for him to feel what the artist felt at that point, because that's the only way that makes that sells real true art. That's the only thing that sells,
Yeah.
is if you can feel it, if you can taste it, if you know what I'm saying. So I think that's the beauty of it. But when it comes to manifesting things, to because we need to express emotions, we need to express thoughts that that sometimes we don't want to think. We need to think those type of things. We need to do that certain way into that dark crevices of our mind, and also experience that emotions that we don't want to feel. But when it comes to actually specifically having a goal of manifesting something, is certain emotions we need to use and utilize to actually get the results that we want, to the best of our ability, and for the to get the best result that'll get you closest to a feeling of completeness.
Yeah.
But on the other side, with certain sad art pieces as well, I can't say that artist, when they completed they didn't feel complete. No, it was just an expression
Well,
of
I think
full
I think
expression.
yeah. I think I think there's a third variable, and maybe we can call it attitude, that also comes into play. Like when emotions, here it is, when emotions are coupled with, let's say, sadness coupled with gratitude. Yeah, so someone's experiencing sadness, but they're grateful for having the opportunity to experience sadness. When that goes into the creation process, it will produce something that resolves sadness through a process of experiencing and resolving sadness. So, like an artist, because there's some artworks that when you're done with them, you feel like you're done. Like you don't feel good. Like you
Yeah.
feel exhausted. You just feel drained. You're like that was just a walk through hell. Like there was no catharsis. There was no journey. There was just like it was just flames, and then it was over, right? So that can happen too, where it doesn't have this cathartic positive thing, but when we have something like gratitude in the mix.
You want just hold on a sec for me, please? That needed to happen. Okay, sorry. Just needed to close that window.
No, it's all good.
Yeah.
But when there's gratitude, as opposed to like bitterness, because what I think I'm realizing is that there are like two orders of emotion. There are like the basal animal emotions, and then there are like a layer of interpretive emotion that we experience after that. So, like for example, anger is like an animal emotion, but like hatred is a more complex psychological phenomena that involves some anger, isn't really simply just an emotion anymore. Once there's hatred, there's thoughts involved, right? You could be angry without a thought. You can just experience the feeling of anger. But if hatred's involved, there's a fixation point. And it's similar with like sadness. Let's say something tragic happens, or you see something tragic, or you're involved in a process that is quite tragic and awful, the death of a loved one, something like that. It's impossible not to experience grief and sadness if you're a real connected human being. But that grief and sadness can have layers of thoughts applied to them that then make them a problem. So if you just experience the grief and sadness with gratitude, gratitude for what you had and what you got to experience with that person before you lost them, that emotional expression will lead to creations of a positive outcome, I've seen. Whereas if you take that grief and sadness, but then you layer fixation on mental fixation into those emotions, then they become trapped in things like hatred is a trap for anger. Depression is a trap for sadness. It's like a bunch of thoughts that end up trapping the emotion and then manifesting something quite negative as a result. Because I've seen how just experiencing years of sadness that I repressed in a grateful state resulted in like an incredible explosion of positive things as well.
But also the moment you experienced it, it was a beautiful moment. You were open to it, and this is what I want to mention as well. You were open to it, and you accepted it. So it doesn't matter. Yeah, as we are saying now, those negative. If you're open to it, and it's actually to release and to free yourself, that's what makes it beautiful. But if it's a trapped emotion where there's resistance, and it's not allowed to get out, but it gets on playing up down, if that makes sense, then it results in skew manifestations.
Yes.
But also,
it's almost like water is like emotion is like water, and if it is trapped and stops running, it becomes stale and poisonous.
Yes, 100%. And then it becomes like Malaysia water, where if you drink it, you pee blood. Like, it is what it is. So it's a very interesting topic. This I think we're already having a lot of fun. I'm learning a lot. Thanks for this.
This is really clarifying some of my own thoughts about emotions and thoughts.
Yes,
so this is cool.
So let's label these emotions, the ones that at the end of the day, remember, with regards to art, we're talking about creating artworks now. Beautiful art has all these emotions layered into it, but I think still the manifestations that surface in our lives is because of us releasing those emotions, of us accepting those emotions so that they can go their way, because they are only there as pointers to get to the real juice, which is joy, love, acceptance, inner peace. What else is there? Love. The states that gratitude, those states, they are actually in the deepest sense of it, they are unalterable. They only can be masked by these base layer emotions. I think you said that earlier. By these shadow emotions, it casts a shadow on what the true source is, and as soon as you can experience that, those ones or those pointers or those directors, which are not negative, because we spoke about this last week as well, without these negative emotions, these negative feelings, these negative pointers, how will we know what we want? How will we be guided? So we named those emotions now. So the negative ones are, and this is not saying they don't have their positives as well. But I think the true emotions that all lead to love for self or love to other, they are the only ones that stands the test of time. Anger, let's use anger. Anger is still normally based on a separation or pushing away of something or a dividing of something. Envy, same thing. Lust, same thing. It's not the bonding of two. It's based on on physicality. It has a dividing factor to it. Whereas with any of these true deep emotions, they normally have a unity aspect to them, where they
Yeah.
always unite.
Yeah.
And basically, if you look at it in the long run, we, in the long run, will unite with our Creator. I don't know if I've used this example before, but one thing that blew my mind that Alan Watts said. I'm going to Unity now, but we'll get back to that just now. So because this is part of this topic. So if Alan Watts said, and this blew my mind, dude, like if you are the most powerful being on this earth, and you can do literally anything. You can create at the flick of a finger. You can destroy. You can manifest whatever you want now. Say, for instance, you are that being right at that moment, at this current moment. What is there to do then? It's like I think I think I would be extremely bored because I'm the only one here. The only one here. I can create things, but they are all my creation. I can just destroy them as well and create new ones a second after that, and more of them, better, or whatever the case might be. So he said, like, if you function in that state, what is the thing you would do? And he thought of it long and hard, and I could not ever find a better way of thinking about this. He said that you would probably go and break yourself into millions and billions of pieces. And each and every piece, you would make yourself forget that that piece comes from you. So that there's a long run, whereas each and every piece, as time goes by, doesn't matter how many millions or thousands of years it takes, each and every piece needs to remember that they come from that I am, so that then at that point the I am can be complete. So it's an extra long game that's being played.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
the same for these emotions. They all direct towards unity, but that's why it's so hard to actually grasp them and keep them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
these shadow emotions, they just prolong the time to actually get to where we want to get in the long run. So if you get to a point where all these emotions, I don't know who has done that before. I think Jesus. I don't know. There has probably been other individuals as well that has gone that full route of synchronizing all these emotions. And if you get to that point, you can do whatever you want. And I want to feel what that is. Don't know how long it's going to take, but I want to get there. I've got this urge inside of me that I need to do it. I don't know about you. We want to manifest at the flick of a finger, but and that's what every single being here. That's the core thing we want to do, is we want to create, and as we can create on a painting, but our lives on the flick of a
Yeah.
finger per second. That's how I view it.
Yeah.
But, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you've introduced a very interesting kind of separation in different types of emotions, and I think there's something there to that sort of splitting them into categories, because let's say gratitude, love, acceptance, these unity based emotions are you could say a higher order than like, I guess, pleasure, anger, sorrow, delight. You know, these are very polar emotions.
Yes.
Whereas the higher order emotions like love, you can experience love while feeling a lower order emotion.
Yes.
This is the interesting thing, right? So it actually supersedes, or in some sense, the lower order emotions. Gratitude can supersede the effect of anger, for example. An emotion like gratitude could supersede greed,
Yes.
right? A moment of greed, a moment
Yes.
of feeling like you don't have enough.
I 100% agree.
And jealousy, right? Gratitude can also kill jealousy, or gratitude when you have gratitude and you experience jealousy, the jealousy is superseded by the gratitude. And it's not that you don't feel the jealousy, because we operate on all levels of reality simultaneously while we're physically incarnated, at least. That means that you are going to feel those basal, or you could say simple emotions, of polar emotions of attraction and repulsion. However, as you develop as a spiritual being, we develop higher order emotions that, let's say, overpower functionally the lower order emotions. So when you exist in a high state of love, gratitude, acceptance, and something tragic happens, you can feel a deep, deep, deep sorrow without it having any detrimental effect on your ability to continue to manifest goodness
Or
around you in
polarizing
life.
effect, or an effect that actually breaks up. It actually still unites, as you're
Yeah,
saying now.
yeah.
If it's done with that frame, yes.
And and what's so interesting about that model is it's the same as the Hermetic principle of
Yes.
overcoming the lower with the higher.
Yes.
Right? So the way that you transcend your lower order emotions is by developing your higher order emotions, which can be and there's also a shadow of these higher order emotions, which we could call kind of trapped dysfunctional emotional states, like depression. That would be the reflection, the dark reflection, something like depression, or even something like a this is risky for me to say, but even something like bipolar disorder or some of these other mental dysfunctions.
Yeah.
I believe a lot of, because like bipolar disorder, it's interesting because it very much fits into what we're talking about here. Is I think a lot of times is that people are just trapped in lower order emotions. They haven't developed their higher order emotions, so they're like flicking back and forth, and the doctor's like, yeah, okay, well, you can't stay in, you're switching back and forth between two poles,
There's
which are
no
your bipolar,
baseline.
right? And because, but it's because they don't have a sufficient amount of the higher order emotions, possibly because there are some of these shadow complexes that have developed, which is something that we can talk about as well. But yeah, because feeling like, let's say, sad and defeated is when something, let's say, that's not great happens. When you have that associated with gratitude and love, you will feel that emotion, go, what can I learn from this defeat? What can I learn from this loss? What productive, what's going to come from the ashes of this, and you begin to rebuild after that. And then that brings emotions of excitation. It brings positive lower order emotions as well, like curiosity. Although curiosity may actually be a higher order emotion,
Yes.
but perhaps not, because but maybe not. It's hard to say. It's sort of in between. But these positive, joyful emotions about, oh well, I get a fresh start now. Like, you get fired from your job. Fuck, it's such a disaster. But hold on. So you've got the sadness, the sorrow. Like, maybe you really liked your job. Maybe it was like a good environment. It paid well. Like, things were. It was a good situation you were in. Oh no, shit! You lose your job. The company is just, it gets hit with a huge financial thing. They have to like cut half the employees. So you get cut. You could look at that and spiral into a hole if you allow one of these shadow type emotional complexes to take hold of a sort of perpetual negativity. Or you can go, this is a big loss. I really enjoyed what I did. Let me sit with that. Let me feel those emotions. Let me appreciate what I had. Because often we feel sadness. Sadness is a type of appreciation when you combine it with gratitude. But when you combined sadness with resentment, it's a completely different situation. Now you're like, yeah, fuck that boss, he screwed me over. Like, you know, he just made me comfortable and then wrecked my life. Like, there's always a way there's two ways to look at it. And that's what we're trying to say. You don't want to go in the direction of resentment, because all that's going to do is ruin your life. And it's ruined my life, and any time I've given into resentment. So I think it's these ways in which whether we choose to develop our higher order emotions of gratitude, love, connectedness, acceptance of things that are painful, the more that you can accept pain and discomfort, the deeper you can progress into that, the more you grow. So these, you know, emotions that are uncomfortable to feel, we must feel them, but we want to combine that with this higher order thinking so that we are not misled by a lower order experience, if that makes sense. It's like, let yourself weep about your lost family member, your mother, your aunt, whenever, you know, we all lose people eventually.
But it's to actually free yourself up or to accept in a future situation. And that's basically a thought. That's not an emotion. That's a thought. You have to do that consciously. Where you what I'm saying. So based on the topics now, I wrote down a few things here, and one of the coolest quotes for me from Gandhi, I don't know if you know this, but he said that it is better to be violent if there is violence in our hearts than to put on the cloak of non-violence to cover impotence. And impotence, the definition of impotence is inability to take effective action or helplessness. And I think with what you said just now as well, it all points towards action, and we always say action and experience. It always points towards that. What is the reason you are feeling this? Are you feeling this because are you feeling regret because you're running away from something, or are you running towards something to actually solve something in the future? Or is it so that you don't want to solve something in the future, you just don't want to feel something now? That's the action you have. So, and your thought will also be in line with that end goal that you have and the action that you want to take right now, or the move you want to make to actually get to that result. So if you're feeling, let's use Jesus as an example. Okay, so why would Jesus, one of the sons of God, because me and you both believe we are all sons and daughters of God, but he was just on a whole new level. Okay, so why would this guy that can control every single emotion, and from all the documentations that there was never a time where this guy actually acted like me and you have, and anyone probably watching this, and all humans on earth, except a few, acted in ways that we didn't want to act. Out of a chord of our character, let's say that, of your true character, the core of you, your spirit, because these emotions, these negative emotions, are normally linked to the flesh. But one thing we need to understand, we are still trapped in both worlds. We as humans have a privilege above demons and angels. We are right in the middle. We can jump and traverse both between these two worlds. They can only normally manifest in physicality certain things, and I don't know. I've never, as far as I can remember, I haven't been a demon or an angel before, so I don't know. But But we have this ability to be able to jump between these two worlds, physical world and the spiritual world. And the point I was getting to, let's use Jesus as an example, and let's use anger as an example, and let's use the example where he went and just bashed the tables at the church where they were selling shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So he was angry, he was furious, but that anger had a result to actually illuminate and to open people's minds up. So it was a positive result for self and for others. The reason why for himself, it is better to be violent if there is violence in our hearts than to put on the cloak of non-violence to cover impotence, to cover non-action. Because if he didn't act at that point, what made him different than anyone else? He was just falling in line there. He was just falling in line. He was just doing what everyone else around him did. No one did that with him. He was the only one that took that action, as far as I could make it out there. So there was no fear present. And we all know fear is the reason we don't do the things we should. We don't want to see the light in our hearts. We don't want to face the hard things. It's because of fear of what's going to happen afterwards. It's fear of the future. It takes you out of the now. So this is the prime example. Why would a man like Jesus still use anger if there was no value in it? And this is exactly what you're saying, Johan. You have your shadow emotions that needs to be used on this earth at its right time and right place to guide, to move forward for yourself and your loved ones.
Yeah.
But there's times whereas you have anger in your heart, but it's not going to make a difference. It's a pointless anger to just point out, but there's no lesson or guidance or forward movement for yourself or for the other entities or people around you. So that's the one point I wanted to make. I wrote down just two more things here as well. So we just need to remember that at the end of the day, these emotions are not bad, but at the right time, we need to use them. So if we can't control them, if we can't, and I must be honest, dude, like my most powerful, and I've done a lot of due diligence this last while as well. The two most powerful emotions that have ruined my life and also brought me into spaces where I jumped up like 20 levels was anger and regret. That's my personal experience. So we all experience these things, and I still, up to this day, anger still has me by the balls many times. I'm honest about that. It's okay because we all have these emotions. Certain people, they were not brought up in an angry household or where this emotion, this addictive emotion was all around us, whereas with them they had maybe like shame or guilt or self-pity, but it's things that guides us to get to a place of a higher level. And the emotion will never evaporate. It's at the end of the day, that's why we do meditations. That's why we pray. That's why we go into silent spaces. It's to be able to manage these emotions so they do not control you, so that you can control them, so that you can control the monkey in the long run, so the monkey doesn't run you. And these type of emotions, if they are not handled with care and also noticed, if we are not aware of them and we just keep on doing them time after time, they'll just start reaping more havoc. They'll just start creating more damage. because they are super addictive. If you look at the emotion of pity, people will not have self-pity. I've been in this emotion many times in my life as well. You will not feel self-pity if you didn't get a positive result from it. You will not feel anger if you did not get a positive result from it. And the positive result is not a spiritual result. It's a physical result. It's a result where someone goes like, oh, come here, give me a hug, man. And then cool, you got your hug. You're feeling a little bit better. Next target. Let's go get the next target. Let's get my next hug. Whereas I don't feel alone anymore. But in reality, you are still alone in that space. Whereas if you can use self-pity but generate it with a scene of self-care, then you're not going to throw it onto someone else. And you won't need that reaffirmation that you feeling pitiful. That pity, you are allowed to feel if you're lying on your bed and you're lying in fetal position and crying like a little baby, because that is resolving something. That is moving forward. That will give you a result in the future that will not be negative. That will give you a manifestation that'll be a manifestation of release and a manifestation of acceptance. So these emotions are extremely addictive, especially the physical ones. They are as addictive as drugs. They are more addictive probably than meth, because we use them more than we use meth or heroin. And we think it's okay, and we justify to ourselves why it is okay. But they are only okay if you are aware of them, you are aware that it's a problem, and you're bringing that to the surface as time goes on. If you are not aware of them and you're justifying them, denial is not just another river in Egypt, and it will have consequences in the future in terms of your manifestations, in terms of your reality syncing with that.
And you said if you experience these painful and darker emotions in the context of release, right? In the context of acceptance, you get a positive outcome. I mean, it's the same really with if you are experiencing those emotions in a context of denial, then what you're going to manifest is more denial and disconnect, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
You're not accepting the emotion. You're like, this emotion hurts. I don't want this. I can't accept this. So what you're going to generate is more non-acceptance of what's happening to you and what's happening around you, good or bad. You're going to manifest more
of what you do not want.
More of what you don't want, and you're gonna progress in a direction that is probably undesirable. And so, but I love the way you've explained it there, because I think that even clarifies it in my own head a little bit and helps me make sense of that. That's fantastic.
I want to say thank you to you for bringing up that, because I haven't thought of it this far, not at all. When we said we need to make thought and emotion one, and where you said there's a baseline emotion, or as we said in the beginning, the shadow, but then there's another emotion in the background, the general scene. If I can't say your exact words, but that's the communication I got from you. The general scene or environment, the one that everything is running in, and that's basically the core one. It's what is that frequency you're resonating on? Let's call it the frequency, because that's the one that's the reason for the frequency. That blew my mind, because this can go such an the avenues here.
And the power of gratitude. I meet people from every walk of life, Christians, Catholics, and they don't have very much gratitude. atheists, I mean, literally people from all walks of life, they have not cultivated significant amounts of gratitude in their lives. And so one of the things that I do as a health coach is that one of the very first things I put on everybody's day is a gratitude-based exercise that only takes 2 minutes. I have them go outside, take their water with them while they're drinking their morning fluids for hydration. We go stand outside, get some sunlight in your eyes. Don't stare directly at the sun if it's already kind of over the horizon. Watch the sunrise if that's the time you get up. But just spend 2 minutes being grateful, breathing, and set your background ambiance of the environment for the day. Because if you start your day off with, you're outside, fresh air, you welcome the day with gratitude and acceptance, then whatever happens the rest of that day, you've already set a tone. And the more often that you set this positive tone of gratitude, acceptance, love, the more that you practice setting that tone, it becomes an ingrained natural part of your being. It just becomes the background eventually. And then no matter what happens to you, it doesn't throw you off of your course. It affects you, you feel it, but nothing can really sway you off of your course, because you've got this background environment of higher emotional function that is creating a context where these, you could say, lower emotional functions that are very polar can take place without them being disruptive to the rest of your life. It's sort of like if I to use another analogy, if you've got like an engine that's producing a lot of horsepower, you can't, let's say that's lower emotions. They're just energy, revolutions of positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, right? That's just a cycle. It's just a Now, if that is happening in the context of a well-built chassis that holds the engine very firmly, all of the joints where things are spinning and moving at an extreme intensity are stable, the environment that this oscillation is occurring is stable, then there's full power transfer into the road, and therefore maximum speed. And I think that's really what a person that is we see these sort of giants like Tony Robinson or Tony Robbins, and these sorts of people who are like these giants of conscious development and self-development. And the difference between them, their experience, and many of us, is that their chassis around their emotional engine is extremely stable. So they can have that oscillation and experience those oscillations, but all that's doing is moving them forward. Every negative emotion is moving them forward. Every positive emotion is moving them forward, because they have this background of gratitude, love, acceptance that is holding the engine and the gearbox together, if that makes sense. And when you give into resentment, when you flip into a disempowered, depressed state, when you flip into blame, when you go that direction of things, it's the equivalent of having a rusted out chassis and engine box, and now that oscillation causes the motor to rip the whole car to shreds. Yes. Right? So maybe that's another way, a picture that we can use to describe what we're trying to talk about. But there's this, and like I said, that's why I actually program an exercise in there, because I've seen how in my own life, there was an exercise I did for a period of time when I was very, very depressed, where I would write down like several things that I was grateful for at the end of each day. A gratitude list. And I've recommended doing gratitude lists to many people that are in extreme states of depression. They often don't think it'll work, but it does. If you can teach yourself to be grateful in the midst of your suffering and difficulty, you will achieve a level of stability that will allow you to move forward. Have you read Alexander Solzhenitsyn's book No, that's not him. It's Viktor E. Frankl. Man's Search for
Yeah,
Meaning.
that book.
So in
That
that,
if you're talking about gratefulness, that's everyone must read that. If you haven't read that book yet,
yeah,
this guy
yeah,
was grateful in a Nazi concentration camp.
yeah, yeah, and it's the only reason he survived. So there's something that is so powerful about developing gratitude, even in the most horrendous circumstances, and with gratitude, love, acceptance, developing these higher order emotions. In that book, for the viewers who haven't read it, and I couldn't recommend a book more than that. It's a short read too. It's a tiny little, like it's a small little book. It's a quick read, but it's probably one of the deepest books on suffering that I've ever read.
Yeah, me too.
You know, it's one of the most profound works on suffering and pain that I've ever read. And it was about having courage in the midst of your pain and suffering, and it was about having gratitude in the midst of your pain and suffering, and how that allows you to transcend your suffering in a way that is inexplainable, really, to somebody who's just been too comfortable. It's hard to even wrap your mind around that. Um, and yeah, I think there's something to that, you know.
Definitely. So if you're talking about gratefulness, these again, as we say, base emotions. If you look anyone that has ever been called an enlightened being, um, has gotten to those base emotions through suffering. Now, how do you get to these base emotions through suffering? By experiencing an intolerable amount of the shadow emotions, isn't it? So, if you are still tolerating these shadow emotions like hate, anger, envy, whatever it is, you just haven't had enough of it. And this is also what Viktor E. Frankl writes about as well. If you really go into the depths of hell, there's no other. It's automatically built into us that we would at some point choose the real or the truthful option, even if your outer reality doesn't show any proof of it. That's what he did. He imagined
Yeah.
while eating maggot food with maggots in it, he imagined eating a beautiful cheese hamburger. His external manifestations, or what happened externally, was not, there was no reaffirmation of that. But it was because of the amount of suffering. But then it's also debatable if you look at other people. I think it's at the amount of years that soul has walked the earth. I personally think. But if you look at, as you said, Tony Robbins, if you look at Gandhi, if you look at Jesus, if you look at Buddha, if you look at all these examples, they were people, and I feel Tony Robbins is someone that's very, very close to being an enlightened being. I mean, this guy, if you look at the amount, he's helped billions of people, not millions. Like he's helped a good 10% of the world in terms of mental issues. I think the amount of talks this guy has had is, if you can maybe just have a look and maybe see if you can find it, but it's an insurmountable amount of actual what do you call it, retreats and events that Tony Robbins has had up to this time. I mean, this guy, he's almost, I think he's 70 now. If you look at how his body looks, and you compare that to his age, I mean, this guy still takes cold cold dunks every morning. I mean, he's got a hole in his backyard with ice water in it permanently, and he does that every single morning. This guy, if you look at him, you won't say he's whatever. I think he's about 70, man. I don't know what his age is, but
Yeah, dude. He's an older man.
so if
I
you
can't find his.
no, it's
I
okay.
can't find his past, but
No
I
stress.
can't find his past schedule.
Cool. So
But he literally has two. He literally has 2 events, basically every single month.
yeah, so he's been doing this
week-long
for
events.
50 to 60 years. So we can do the maths on that, but it's an insane amount of people this guy has helped, and the only way you could have done that is by having a solid foundation. And the foundation is that baseline emotions that we're talking about. He functions in a state of gratitude and love, because these are the two that are of highest order. Okay, so to be great, if you can be grateful on a permanent basis with whatever you have, and if you feel unconditional love towards everything and everyone, it'll not take long for you to have exactly everything you want. If you can function on that baseline on a daily basis, you function on those emotions daily from Monday to Monday, and you do that for a month. Okay. It sounds very easy what I'm saying now, but it is not. It's the hardest thing in the world, because that's why only people like him have, like, I don't know, I think he's an owner of 167 companies. His value is billions and billions and billions of dollars. He is in the billionaire list as well. And that is not just because of his shows or his events he has. It's because of his frame of mind. Whatever he touches turns to gold. Like, I struggle with many emotions still, and we all do, okay? And I'm aware enough. This is why I'm taking that 100-hour meditational journey where it's a silent retreat and just 100 hours of meditation. This is exactly the reason why I'm taking it, because I'm building my background. I'm building that baseline. I'm building that repetitive thought systems that runs automatically in the background. Is it anger, jealousy, hate, or is it gratefulness, love, thankfulness? Is it you know what I'm saying? So when it comes to me, this is the route I'm taking, and I've realized at the age of I'm almost 37 now. Tomorrow, actually, I'll be 37 years young. Okay, so at this age of my life, and it was only this year that I truly realized that I've been in self-help studies for a very long time of my life. Okay, I started with Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, but I could never understand it up to how far it actually impacts your life and what frame you are functioning. And we all have these different frames that we're functioning in because of our upbringing. And it runs there in the background. Even if you feel you've conquered it, if you look deeply enough, if you sit enough in stillness, in silence, you would realize you would at some point get agitated, irritated, frustrated, angry, sorrowful. And that's just a pointer. So there's nothing wrong with it, but it's a pointer that you have not developed sufficiently to where you want to develop, depending on what your goals are. Now, mine, as I said earlier, is to get to a point where I want this might be an insane idea, but before I breathe out my last breath on this earth, I want to be able, while I'm breathing here, to be able to merge with God or consciousness, naturally, without using any substances. That's what I want to do. How will I be able to do that? To be in these baseline emotions every single day, every single week, every single month. Because what is that? What is God if it is not that? It's like, what else is He? That is the truth. That is the light. That is heaven. That is, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added unto you. It's exactly what I'm saying now. I mean, Jesus said that 2,000 years ago. Seek first these things. Seek first getting yourself into heaven. Doesn't matter what your external circumstances shows. Get yourself into those baseline emotions. Get yourself into a state of gratitude, of unconditional love. Get yourself there, and whatever you want, whatever your soul has ever yearned for, you will get automatically, because there's nothing more to do. So then it's just a play, and it's not for me to get material possessions at the long run. Yes, great, I can still have all the things I want at the end of the day, but for now, why I'm doing, and I'm gonna do still a lot of things. This is, I know for a fact, this is not the end of it. This is literally just the beginning, even though it's been many years I've been busy with this. At the end of the day, I want to go and sit in that silence. That silence is not going to be like you see on movies, where you sit like, with a smile all over your face and life is just amazing. No, it's going to have a lot of tears, a lot of back pains, a lot of cramps, a lot of hunger, a lot of, it's going to have all the negative emotions that I'm supposed to feel when I'm not aware. When we distract ourselves, when we go make this type of food, or when we use drugs, or when we drink, or when we even do certain activities to just get out, because you don't want to sit with that silence with yourself. Now, in this space, I will be forced to do that. There's no escape from it. They're taking my phone. They're taking my car keys. Like that's how far it goes. So personally, I feel that I think if you don't know that this is the place that you need to, they say each person for their own, but in the long run, spiritually, because you are a spiritual being in a physical body, you are not a physical body acting as a spiritual being. In the long run, this is the only goal we all have, to return to our source.
Yeah.
And the only way we can do that is by getting these emotions intact that run our lives, and that runs our bodies like we're monkeys.
Yeah. No, definitely. You said something that was, I thought, a key to understanding and progress. You said when it gets to a point where you can no longer tolerate the pain and suffering, specifically the suffering component of the pain, that's when real change happens, right? And I think a lot of times people confuse strength with tolerating your suffering, in a sense, when you should be driven to transcend your suffering.
Yes, it's all about transcendence, right?
Right. And so what I suggest doing is lower your tolerance for your own suffering. Like the moment you get into a place of suffering, become intolerant to that. Become awfully intolerant to you allowing yourself to go into a place of because the pain, I mean, I have a pain every morning when I get in a cold shower. I have pain when I lift weights. Pain is nothing. But suffering is unbearable. At least it should be. And you shouldn't bear it, because you should transcend the suffering by just experiencing the pain and being grateful that you get to be a part of this.
That's very true what you're saying. So pain transcends, and suffering is the reason for suffering. It's just a nasty cycle.
Yeah, and suffering is a bad mindset about your pain. It's a mindset of avoidance. It's a mindset of disunity from pain, because suffering says I don't want pain.
Yes.
When you can describe yourself as I'm suffering, like when let's take an example from my world. When you're lying on the floor between sets, panting for air, you are in an enormous amount of pain, but you're also experiencing an enormous amount of euphoria within that pain, because you chose that, right? You just finished that set of 10 at an incredible weight, and you've just pushed yourself deeper into the pain zone, deeper into where you thought you couldn't go. That pain, all that pain does is stimulate positive outcome. You become stronger, you become more resilient mentally, physically, emotionally. Whereas when pain is experienced with that shitty suffering mentality of, oh, why is this happening to me? Or the I can't catch a break guy, as Joe Rogan calls it. There's a really cool Akira that Don called...
Yeah, I was just thinking about that song, dude. Like what?
Yeah, where he's like, get them the fuck away from me.
Yes.
Oh, I don't want to hear
yes.
that, is what the song is called. But the chorus is, get them the fuck away from me.
Yes.
And he's talking about people who are like, oh, I just can't catch a break. Life is so hard. It's like, that mentality is what makes your life so hard. That mentality is what's sabotaging your results. That mentality is leading you to not produce productive action. The most powerful, truly satisfied, happy people that are living their best version of their lives, truly and innerly, Tony Robbins, we see these examples. Those people experience more pain than you do. This is what you don't understand. They go way deeper into pain than what you do. Because
pain is just a driver.
That's why you're still stuck in your depression and your shitty emotion.
Yes.
Tony Robbins takes a plunge, like a freezing cold ice bath every morning. I can't tolerate that yet. I can't tolerate as much pain as he can. Not yet, but I'm working towards it. So the goal really becomes to build so much gratitude, love, acceptance that you can go deeper and experience more pain.
Because that'll push you towards more gratitude, acceptance, and love.
And we go back to that, you could say, foundation of love, acceptance, the chassis of the car, holding that, so that pain, that the dark emotions, as we can call them maybe, are actually producing a forward drive as opposed to an incapacitation or impotence, as mentioned earlier.
You're 100% correct, man. I 100% agree with you, dude. Like what, as we said in the beginning as well, like what else are these things? If they were not needed, they wouldn't have been in reality. These emotions, these negative emotions, because they are still pointers pointing us to the reality and the manifestations we really want in the long run. The question is, are you fearful for it? Are you fearing it, running away? Or are you seeing them as pointers and running with them so that you can get closer to the end goal and to the emotions you want? Are you using it as fuel, or are you using it as a repellent? I want to go back to, you said something earlier, whereas you said, firstly, curiosity is, you're not sure about curiosity, if it's a shadow emotion or a base emotion. Now, my personal opinion, again, is I made a note of it, so I just want to go back to that. Just remembered about it now, so we can just quickly talk about this as well. Curiosity, the opposite of that for me is boredom. So in that sense, curiosity is one of the base emotions. Without curiosity, you will not be able to explore.
Yeah.
Curiosity has side effects, but it's because you explored. And if you do not explore, what will you then know? So how will you know what you like and what you don't like? So I just personally feel, and just as I explained it now, like the two opposites, if we just look at the opposites, curiosity is definitely a forward propelling emotion. It's an emotion that does not stagnate. Whereas with boredom, the only reason you can feel boredom is because of stagnation or standing still or doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. So I want to use a personal example. So this last week, there was a specific day where I've written down things, and I was like, okay, let's use my my cryptos as an example. So with many situations, I I find myself in crypto. This is now a personal example I can use, and it frustrates the shit out of me, dude, because I get scenarios. I'm in a lot of alpha groups because I've been doing this for such a long time. So I watch information coming through, I look at it, and then I'm like, all right, am I going to go for it or not? Okay. Now, funny thing is, the ones that look logical to me, many times I select them, and at the end of the day, it's a total bummer, man. And I'm like, how did this not work? And some of the things that comes up in the alpha groups, whereas it looks totally illogical and it doesn't make sense, man. Like a pick of a dick, or like just really stupid shit. And sometimes it's not stupid, but something in me says, no, leave this, man. Just go do something else. You're a bit tired, just rest. There's this voice coming on. Okay, then I leave that specific one. 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, I wake up and that thing is worth, what's it say? Just one of those pictures, and I could have minted them for free, right? I would have just paid transaction costs. Okay, now hear this. There's many of these that happen. But then they are $1,000 or $2,000 per picture. Like, there was one that I sold the other day, right? Okay, not the other day. This was like 6 months back, but it was like 0.02 Bitcoin, right? So it's still a lot of money. But I sold it, and I knew it was a shitty thing to do, but I still did it. My body acted, and I sold that shit, okay? Now, currently, it's half a Bitcoin. Okay, like, there's so many examples I can use. So the point I want to get to, it creates a fear of missing out in me. It creates a fear whereas I do not want to sleep anymore, because when I miss these things, I miss a lot of money. But then the fact of the matter is, it's not me missing it. I see them going by like traffic and I judge them. Now, my question is, am I functioning in a spirit of regret? And the more I feel this, the more will be passing me by as time goes by. And the more I will see shit that I lose out on, I will do the actions, my body will act out, I will sell and buy the shit I shouldn't, and I will get the results more and more and more, where I would get this emotion more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
Now, this is an example out of my life, and I did a full in-depth examination on this. So what I'm busy working with now is, when I see these things coming through, I'm not going again like, let's just go and get water. Let's walk up and down here. Let's frustrate myself. Let's go run and think about it. My whole run. Let's go walk somewhere and just think about it, how I missed out on it. Let's drop that. If I missed out on it and I left it, I didn't take the action, or I took the action with something that was completely useless, it is what it is. Get back to baseline and start working from there again. And it's exactly the same with people meditating. It's exactly the same with us going into silence. It's exactly the same with you doing your workouts. It's exactly the same why we're doing Wim Hof, why we're doing breathing exercises, pranayama, those type of things. It's to actually get into a space of silence, okay? So from that space of silence, and I've seen this work countless of times, when I'm really in a silent space, I buy the shit I need to buy, and I get the results in the future that I would have gotten if I were quiet in here. So, yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, please do, because I think the people also watching this, none of us are enlightened, and, we are... We see things maybe a bit differently, but it's not that we are Jesus at the end of the day.
Yeah, we all see in part, we know in part, and we speak in part, right? So
And these experiences teach us.
They do. So this is a gambling example. So I don't gamble very often, but I am fond of playing poker. And I've probably actually played poker with money maybe 5 times in my life. No, it's like 3. But anyways, so this one night I was playing poker after work with all of my waitering colleagues, and I was quite stoned as well. And we were about halfway through the game. About half the players had already lost all of their money. I think we put like 50 rand in, or some small nominal amount of money, and then we went from there. But so about half the players were out, and I was there was 3 players left, and I was the third. I was running very low on chips, and I was kind of like a little bummed because I'm a decent poker player. I'm not nothing amazing, but I'm decent at it. And I'm bummed because I'm not doing well. And this thought comes into my head, like, what happens if you just stopped trying to win and you just bet entirely based on impulse? Like you didn't consider logic at all in the equation of what you were doing. Like instead of trying to think your way out of it, just impulsively behave, right? In a sense, like not quite impulsively, but sort of whatever the inner urge is, right? So I did this experiment. I'm gonna lose anyways if I keep going like this. Like whatever I'm doing now is I'm gonna fold out of this game very, very soon. I'm running out of money. So I just go, fuck it. And I just go, what do I feel like doing? And I started folding when I had what seemed like a good hand to start with. I would just feel the impulse to fold. Nope, fold. I would bet on a hand that didn't seem good at all. Like I stopped making sense to myself entirely, but I won.
So you did intuitional moves, right?
Yeah, so I just went, yes, like it was pure intuition. So it was just like, just go 100% of what you feel to do in your intuition. Look at the cards and go, what do I feel to do, and do it. And I freaking walked away with all the money I won that night. I cleaned up. And it didn't make any sense at all initially. But what I've realized since, and what you're describing now, is that this often doesn't happen maybe in the beginning with something because you're not familiar enough with something. But at a certain point, your intuition begins to kick in once you've developed a certain level of mastery of the skill set. And from that point on, you need to follow your intuition. You know, it's like you need to understand the mechanics of poker a little bit. You need to understand the mechanics of stock trading and cryptos and how to buy them and this and that. There's a basal skill set required with anything, right? But once that's achieved, the real success comes in following an intuitional path. And another place where I heard this being repeated was, I believe it's the guy who started Hot Topic. And I think he was like almost basically homeless. And now he's a multi-millionaire. If I don't have it wrong, he wasn't very well off, at least to start with, but he was really not well off to start with. And he said literally all I did was follow my gut. He's like, that's all I've ever done. I have no idea how I succeeded, to be very honest with you. I just followed my gut. So there's something about, and you know, people call it their gut, their intuition, but really you're following the leading of spirit within you, right?
Yes.
I think is what's happening there. And so the reason that you keep telling everyone to achieve silence is because hearing your intuition or the spirit speak within you requires you to listen, and then it has to be quiet.
It's the only way. It's the only way.
It's the basic prerequisite skill to achieve anything, is that you have to have a background of silence first so that you can listen to the information coming in.
If it's quiet in the background, you can have anything you want.
Yeah.
You can literally have anything you want. If you can quiet it down 24 hours a day, there's no intruding thoughts. There's no intruding emotions, because the emotions goes with the thoughts. If you can silence those thoughts or work through all of them, then you can just think what you want with the emotion that you have, which would then probably be joy because you have silence, there's nothing that brings you down. You would get exactly what you want if you can do that on a permanent basis. And then you ask, why does Buddhists or monks or Jesus or these people, why didn't they have exactly what they wanted? They did. It's just not what you want. Like, not everyone wants success. Not everyone wants all the cars and the money in the world. Some people just wants to be left alone, because if you are in a state of joy permanently, what more would you want?
Yeah, exactly. And in some fundamental, very real sense, if we take your earlier example of God breaking himself up, what you're experiencing now is what you wanted to begin with. Like, you chose this path.
Yes.
You as God chose this path already. So it's like you're living what you want to live, what you, in a very real, deep, fundamentally spiritual sense, you are doing what you want to be doing. you can as a in a sort of a schizophrenic state of disharmony, pretend like you don't.
Yeah.
Which is what all mental illness really is, just pretending like this is not the life that you picked. And I say that as somebody who's like has spent over a year with a incredible therapist helping me work through some of my emotional damage and trauma. But it's still true. Like, the mental illness is nothing more than maintaining a fissure or a wound, leaving it and holding it open and not allowing it to close. It's a kind of a self-destructive process, and therefore the only way to heal is a self-directed process as well.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I think that's an important way to explain things, because it's the foundation of reality is unity. The foundational, and you see this when you look at nature, right? You walk into a forest, and you spend enough time at first you'll see division. You'll see the eagle hunts the squirrel and the rodent and the smaller bird and all of that, right? But then you follow the eagle and you watch what happens to the eagle. The eagle eventually dies, and the worms get it, and the bugs get it, and the beetles eat
They all work towards one end goal.
And that feeds the plants, and the plants feeds the next thing, and it's so the fundamental truth of a forest is unity. When you look at it, at its foundational principle is unity and cooperation, basically.
Yes.
Now, in an individual granulated level, it's violence.
Yes.
Right. So violence and unity are not. You can see that they're actually integral. The sort of the unity goes beyond the violence that's occurring, the physical death, the hunting, the killing, the eating, the all of that is there for the purpose of unity.
Yeah.
The duality is created so that unity can be experienced. Like, separation is created so that reconnection can be experienced.
Yeah. No, definitely. In trading, this is something that's said a lot, is when in doubt, zoom out.
That's amazing.
And such is life as well. When in doubt, when you're confused, zoom out.
Yeah.
And how do we zoom out? We create space. How do you create space? In silence. So
Yeah.
you can't create space if it's a lot of noise, because there's no way to go to. There's already something there. So and that's why we again do these type of exercises. So one thing you said as well when you spoke about the conscious and the unconscious, and that's basically what it is. The whole example that you use now, the one that I used, with those shitty times I get sometimes, and it happens with anyone that trades. Like that's why there's a word called FOMO. It's fear of missing out. It causes this. So, and you can't buy everything. So But I wanted to go back to what you were saying now, that there's the conscious and the unconscious, and the problem is, and it goes back to my example as well, that our conscious mind, our logical mind, our rational mind, our fleshy mind, our beastly mind, tries to calculate, work out, especially with us men, but with everyone. But women are more emotionally inclined. So we try to rationalize and look at things in a logical manner, and then get to a specific result. But if logic was the only way, then so many more people would have had the results they wanted. Logic is not always helpful. Logic normally, many times, kicks us in our own ass, because what in this world is logical, like literally logical, if it was not based on past knowledge. Like, let's use an example, whereas if we zoom out again, as Joe Rogan said, we're in a ball floating in the middle of space with a big, bright star right on top of us wanting to kill us. Is that logical? Is it? Can it be understood logically, or is there another, a deeper spiritual, unconscious way of understanding it, and that way is just is just an inner knowing that it is what it is, and I won't be able to explain this to someone 100% logically. I'll even lose myself trying to explain it. So, and this is what I'm wanting to say, is that some things, especially with the unconscious, it's not always explainable. It's not always explainable. It gives the right directions, but if you're going to try to explain or to understand or to assimilate it with a logical mind, you'll talk yourself out of it, and you are not going to get what you asked for. Because that's basically it. If you're doing things with your conscious mind, and you are trying to understand with your conscious mind alone, your conscious mind will not be able to interpret the information that comes from the great unconscious, because some things are not meant to be understood. Some things are not meant to be logically understood or consciously understood. Some things just is, or just are.
Yeah.
So, that was very interesting. So I wrote here, like, the conscious can many times, and this is the thing, we want to get to the background of it. We want to get past the guard of our minds, the guard that guards all these things that's going to make you fearful or cause pain or whatever. Because many times these type of things are the things that grows us. And we consciously block these things many times without, we're not thinking of blocking the things, but consciously with our mind, if we think with this brain material, then many things are going to get blocked out, and we're working towards a goal to manifest a certain thing. Whereas with the unconscious, as you said, it's intuitional. It's an open, and this comes back again to openness and acceptance with these negative and positive emotions. As we said earlier with the baseline, if the baseline is with regards to acceptance or openness, then the manifestations will be positives and closer to the things you want. And it's exactly the same. This is the reason why I'm talking about it. It's exactly the same with regards to the unconscious. The unconscious needs to be treated with openness and acceptance. That's all. Not with rationality. If it's treated with rationality, you won't get the gist of it. It's the same with doing a tarot reading for someone. If you're going to do a tarot reading for someone and you're not going to go solely on intuition, and you try to deconstruct this with a rational mind, and you've read 20 tarot books on how to explain tarot to someone, you're going to miss the point for that person that you're actually trying to give the information across, because it's not going to come from your unconscious. It's going to come from the rational mind that read something in a book. Same as if you want to give a prophecy to someone. Let's use with regards to Christianity, these people that can give prophecies, that have the gift to give certain prophecies. If that guy pulls it from a rational mind, he's just going to tell the person that what he wants to hear and what sounds best to him and what sounds best to that person that wants to hear it. Whereas if he pulls it from the unconscious and just lets it flow, he accepts it, and he talks about it with openness, then it'll give the end result that it needs to give.
While you were talking, I saw this picture in my mind, and I just drew it very quickly. I thought it'd be very helpful. So you have the campfire of knowledge, right, which is the central point where we have our greatest understanding. And then the first ring that you have is logic, but it's also the smallest one. It's the things that have already been very well covered that we've developed logic for.
Yeah.
Outside of that is the spiritual, emotional, emotive, and intuitive processes.
Yes.
And then it's darkness. So the edge, in order to grow and progress, in order for logic to expand, you must go into that which is spiritual, emotional, and intuitive, and stretch the boundaries of your understanding, right? That we talked about, how will you know what you like until you've tried, right?
Yeah.
How will you know what you want and don't want unless you're willing to explore?
Yeah.
And what happens sometimes is people will explore and then have a result that they didn't like, and then fall into it and start and be completely like distraught. And it's like, but why aren't you being grateful for the opportunity to find out what you didn't want? Because now you know what you actually want.
Yeah. Towards that direction.
Because regret. So my two main problematic emotions that I deal with are anger and shame, and with regret specifically, what times we could talk about shame has its own thing, but with regrets, a lot of times it's people will look at an exploration that they undertook and then view it with regret, or in my case, shame about having undertaken an exploratory process, and then get stuck in that, as opposed to going, oh, I tried that, I didn't like it, so I did something else.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, I tried that, it showed me that that's not really what I want. What I actually want is this. Now I can have what I actually want. Because the truth is that have anything we want, but the real journey is figuring out what you actually want.
Yeah.
Right? So I think what often happens is the part of what's necessary is the patience and acceptance of that's many of your exploratory journeys will result in you finding out things that you might not like. But that's okay, because now you know you don't like those things, right? So I think
it's the only way we'll know.
And for the people who are like I guess you call them your left-brained, buttoned-down, like logic-only individuals, like you're living in a very small circle of life.
Yeah, the circle is actually much smaller than that.
Sphere. It's logic. Logic is a very small circle, and what extends beyond that is intuition, the spiritual and emotional aspects of life, and that slowly but surely you will be able to rationalize and understand over time. The circle of logic will grow, but it's only if you're courageous enough to go into the unknown.
Yes.
And that requires entering into the emotional, intuitive, spiritual space. You know.
Agreed, 100%.
So Because I was always the person that was very like, I relied heavily on logic. I was very disregarding of emotions and intuition for many years in my life because of specific elements in my upbringing.
Yeah.
And what I learned over time was that the spiritual, intuitional components go beyond logic. It goes where logic that is not capable of going yet, to the unexplored territory. It's only once you've been, let's say, really covered a piece of territory extremely well before you can make an accurate map. And logic is nothing more than a decently accurate map. But when we're talking about unknown territories that we only have glimpses of, and it has not been fully explored, you can't create an accurate map.
Yeah.
And logic will fail you there. And so you must go beyond logic.
Yeah, and embrace that curiosity spirit.
Yeah.
As we spoke about earlier. Yeah, so let's just, with regards to these emotions, so am I and you on the same wavelength here by saying the only, maybe not the only way, maybe we can explore this a little bit, but the only way to resolve these shadow emotions is by creating a space of silence or quietness, more of that in your mind as time goes by, and then also a sense of curiosity, because without the curiosity you can't go into those crevices, or so how do we, because that's is what we're doing here for the folks. We had this big debate now, but what is the core of this? Is it create that silence within? What, how do we resolve
what's
this?
the takeaway, right? Yeah. Well, I think what we started with emotional states that create results we don't want. So really what we need to answer for the audience, because that's the question we started, how do we deal with it? So we have to answer the question of what do we do with emotional states that produce results we don't want?
Yes.
Right, and the answer that we've come to is we need to change those to different background states or foundational structures, or the chassis of the car, right? So we need to change and actually fix that, because that's really the problem. It's not the emotions that we feel, but it's how we are channeling those emotions, how we are controlling the release of those emotions, that determines whether or not they can be productive or destructive.
Yeah, no, but we can't just change it, and that's the thing. Is it through silence only?
Of change. Well, so I think it's through the practiced cultivation. So I think it's clearing away the old, and that's where our practices of silence come in. Silence is to clear away the old. It's to start from
A blank slate.
anew, in a sense. A blank slate, right? It gives your mind at least a blank slate for the moment to think anew. So we've got to start with the blank slate, which is where we come in with the cultivation of those exercises, and then it's the cultivation of these attributes. It's the spending 5 minutes in the morning telling yourself that you're grateful for your life. It's when you are in a moment of pain and suffering, or difficulty, or hardship, where you tell yourself, I am grateful for my pain and difficulty right now.
Instead of going for a drink or a few drinks.
Yeah, like pain is a privilege. Pressure is a privilege. Like, when I heard that for the first time, pressure is a privilege, it just blew me away. But it's one of the slogans that this bodybuilder, Chris Bumstead, very, very cool guy, he has on his t-shirts, like, pressure is a privilege. And to me, that was so beautiful because that's approaching the pressure that you're under with gratitude, right? So I think it's twofold. One, it's learning how to clear your mind, to quieten your background noise, and then it's to do practices that involve cultivation. So when you obviously it begins with a fixed practice, I think. So something like a 2 minutes, just spending 2 minutes in the morning, stand outside, greet the day, and go, I'm grateful for whatever today brings. You know, I'm gonna choose to set myself and say that to yourself. Today I choose gratitude. Today I choose to accept and appreciate whatever comes my way. I think that's a good place to start. And you set that and you consciously tell yourself that. And then over time, as you begin to cultivate a bit of gratitude and awareness of it, and acceptance in your life, then bring it into every moment that you possibly can. You know, when you catch yourself being a bit distracted with a lover, let's say, or when you're talking to your grandmother and you drift off because she's telling you a story for the 50th time, are you going to switch back into gratitude and go, hey, actually, let's be really grateful for this moment that I get to spend with this person that's not going to be around for the rest of my life? Like, you take it from a fixed practice, and then it needs to bleed out and become a lifestyle. You know, I think it helps to start with these, like a gratitude journal. For some people that works well. Sometimes affirmations can work very well for other people. You find your thing that helps you cultivate gratitude in your life. It could be one of many, many things, but find a way to achieve silence and a way to practice gratitude, love, and acceptance.
Okay, yeah. So what I took away from this is a silence. It's a twofold recipe: silence and then discipline. So
Yes.
so silence and discipline. So how do you get silence? Well, my way is meditation, also writing. So diarize. Go sit somewhere in nature. Think about shit. Go meditate. Even if you can run or gym, find your silence there. Do that, but use it wisely. And then, as you said, with these practices, we need to create a discipline with them. So if you choose, say, for example, meditation, and you start with, okay, you've never meditated before, start with 10 minutes. Start with 10 minutes a day. Do that. I mean, what is 10 minutes out of your day? You still got 23 hours, 50 minutes left. Let's look at it that way. So that 10 minutes, you start with that on a daily basis. You do it from Monday to Monday. And at the end of the week, you've had 70 minutes of meditation and thought processing time. Whereas I can guarantee you have created space in your mind, whereas there would be at least 5 to 10 seconds silence before you make an action, whereas you can actually process it. The more you're going to do it, the more you're going to be disciplined. You'll get more of that silent space, and then you can use that silent space. Then we fall back to the silence again. Then you can use that silent space to actually know what you want, because that will show you as an individual exactly what you want. It might differ from what I want, it might differ from what you want, but create that silence. Doesn't matter how you do it. If it is going to the gym and working your ass off, and you can get that silence, and you keep the discipline on a daily basis, then that is it. Like, just find something where you can create that space. And when you create that space, don't, say for instance, if you're at the gym, don't put on music where there's too much lyrics and all these opinions and all these different things, because then you're just filling your mind again with other people's shit again. So get something meditative, maybe Mozart, Bach, or whatever it is, but something with as little as possible lyrics, or complete silence when it is meditation, and then have a disciplined mindset. Maybe incorporate diarizing with it as well, or a journal, whereas you write about your daily experiences. And it's also a very good thing when in the future you can look back at things and you can actually see how disciplined you were for a certain amount of time, that's still fuel. That's also motivation for you. So yeah, and then yes, emotions, the core emotions, as Johan said, carry being grateful. Gratefulness is the key to getting more of whatever it is you want. If you're not grateful for the small little things, you won't get more of that. And it's not telling someone that you're grateful, it's literally feeling grateful. Maybe practice it. Just a simple example with your food before you eat every day. Take 5 minutes before you eat and literally feel how grateful you are for this small little thing. But there's so many people on this earth that can't do it. It's a small little practice. It takes discipline. It creates silence. You can even do that. So yeah, that's my takeaway, Johan.
Perfect. No, I think I think you landed that very nicely. There's one final example and story I want to share because I think it deals with guilt, shame, and some of these emotions a little bit as well, because we haven't talked about them a ton. So there was this, when I was in Bible school, there was this one lady who worked as a palliative care nurse. I think that's the right word, but basically with very sick people. And she worked a lot with caretakers for sick people as well. And she herself had like a disabled child for many, many years before the child eventually passed away. And one of the things that she said was that one of the biggest, like when she's talking to parents of children who are disabled, one of the biggest things that parents struggle with is when the child does eventually pass away, because they often do if it's a serious issue. The parents are relieved the child is dead, and that's, they feel so much shame about being relieved that the child is dead that almost cripples them. And what she said was like, well, of course you're gonna feel relieved. Like, number one, you don't have to go through the difficulty of trying to help this child, but number two, the child was also suffering. The child was in pain. You know, the child was, or the old person, whatever, whoever you're caring for, the person you were caring for was also in pain, and you're relieved that the pain has stopped. Right? So there are emotions that we feel that we sometimes feel guilty for or feel shameful about having felt, because they don't seem to be very nice. Like feeling relief when a loved one dies. Right? That's one of the emotions that can cripple some people, because especially if you're a bit empathetic, because you're like, oh, how can I be so cold?
Yeah.
It's like, but no, you're rejecting part of the emotional experience. I just kind of wanted to give that story as like a thing to kind of help. It's like, don't judge yourself for having these emotions. Like, when somebody passes away, you might feel a sense of relief. For example, I lost one of my grandmothers at the end of 2019, right before COVID, and the last 2 weeks of her life were just, she was just bedridden and delirious almost, and I'm not gonna lie, I felt relief that when she passed, because as well as sadness, loss, grief, etc. But it was like, well, thank goodness her suffering has stopped.
Yeah.
Right, because she was in a tremendous amount of discomfort and pain. She had like she had leukemia, and once they realized it was just like, it was very quick, and it got very, very, very bad, and then she passed away. So, but I just wanted to kind of affirm that you might feel emotions you don't expect to feel about things, and it's important not to judge yourself about those emotions, because once you allow yourself to process them, you'll understand that many times those emotions that you were initially afraid of revealing a deeper truth to you. Like, for example, that you love your grandmother so much you don't want her to suffer, and therefore seeing the end of that suffering is a relief in and of itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit, like this gets very real and very, very challenging as well.
Yeah.
This what we're talking about, but don't, because I think I sense that some people might feel guilt or shame about many emotions that they've had when tragedy is struck. And I just wanted to affirm that, like, don't judge yourself on that. Accept those emotions, allow yourself to feel them, and with inquisition, you will eventually figure out why those emotions were there, and they often are there out of actually a positive reason as opposed to maybe a negative
As
reason.
pointers.
So yeah.
Yeah, and also
Yeah, as pointers, again, it's
if
a pointer. Yeah.
yeah, if you're saying now, don't feel the guilt or the shame, it is because it's exactly this whole topic this morning, this 2 hours it took. It's about that. If you're gonna feel guilt and shame because of these emotions you already feel, and you need to resolve them, you're gonna get more guilt and shame. Because that's the environment you're going to be trying to resolve them. That's the baseline environment you're going to be utilizing if you're going to do it in the background of guilt and shame. So do it. Be kind to yourself. Understand that whatever emotions it is that you are struggling with, you need to be kind with yourself, even if no one else is. Be kind with yourself and appreciate yourself for taking the actions to do these things, and love yourself for being the one. And I promise you, there's many people that's not even willing to face these type of things. So for being that person that's actually trying to look past this, even if it's not possible, or it's really hard, or it makes you feel guilty or anxious or whatever, just be nice to yourself, because you are doing something that many people are not willing to do. So give yourself credit as well, and function in that. Function in the fact that you can be grateful that you are doing this, that you have the awareness to take on this action, even though those bad emotions are running in the background. You can be grateful that you now have the knowledge to be able to do this. So yeah, Johan, I think this was a really cool episode, man.
Agreed. I love to end it on be kind to yourself. It's a great note to end this this one on.
Yeah, because it's such a hard topic, and we can go to the shaming and naming very quickly, and normally we point that towards ourselves, as you said as well, and then it's just part of that cycle. You're not going to do it as speedy as you want to. So, bro, always talking, always great talking to you.
Same. For the viewers, guys, please like, subscribe, comment, share this as widely as possible. It does make a big difference to us as small independent creators. You sharing it with your friends is how we get out there. So thank you very much to our viewers, and any comments. If you guys have questions, please. We're always looking for more topics to dive into, angles to take on things. If you guys have questions, have experiences that have bewildered you and flustered you and confused you even, tell us about them. We'd be more than happy to interact with that. And if we can offer some help, we would like to.
Yes. All good, bud.
Cool.
See you guys later.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, bud.
Catch you on the other side.